I used to work the night shift at a small hotel about a year ago. Even now, I still think about what happened that night because it genuinely freaked me out more than anything else in my life. I still don't know what the guy's plan was or what he wanted, but every time I remember how long he was there, without me realizing he wasn't even supposed to be, it makes me sick to my stomach. The hotel was small, 3 floors, maybe 40 rooms total. It wasn't a busy place. On most weeknights, we'd only have 10 or 15 rooms filled. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and most nights were dead quiet. I'd sit behind the desk doing paperwork, checking the cameras, or watching YouTube on my phone if things got slow. The lobby wasn't big, just a small front desk, a few couches with a TV, and some vending machines in the corner. Behind me was a little office with a glass window that looked out toward the lobby. After midnight, the front doors locked automatically, so guests had to buzz in, and I'd press a button to let them through. Usually nothing happened after midnight, but one night, this man came in around 11, and everything about him still sends a chill down my spine. He buzzed the door, and I let him in. He looked like he was in his mid-40s, tall, kinda skinny, wearing jeans, a baseball cap, and carrying a backpack. He asked if we had a room for the night. I told him yes, gave him the price, and he nodded, handing me a card. I swiped it, it went through, and I gave him a key card for room 214. I remember the way he looked at me. He just stared, not in a threatening way, but long enough for me to notice. 3, maybe 4 seconds of eye contact that felt too deliberate. Then he turned and walked off toward the elevator. About an hour later, I looked up from my phone, and there he was again, sitting in the lobby. He didn't say anything, didn't come to the desk, just sat down on the couch facing the TV, which wasn't even on. I figured maybe he couldn't sleep. Guests did that sometimes, but 30 minutes passed. He was still sitting there, motionless, just staring at the blank screen. He wasn't on his phone, not reading, not even dozing off, just staring. At one point, I got up to grab water from the vending machine, and I could feel his eyes follow me across the lobby. I didn't look directly at him, but I could feel it. That heavy, crawling sensation of being watched. Around 1 a.m., I checked the reservation system, mostly out of boredom, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Room 214 was listed as vacant. I thought it was a glitch. I double-checked the check-in logs, no record of him. Then I looked at the payment screen. His transaction wasn't there either. It was like he'd never checked in. I called room 214, no answer. Then I checked the keycard entry log. It showed nothing, no door unlocks. That meant he never even went up to the room. He was never supposed to be there. I looked toward the lobby. He was still there, sitting perfectly still. That's when the uneasiness turned into fear. I waited about 15 minutes debating what to do. Finally, I walked over and asked if everything was okay. He turned to me slowly and said, "I just couldn't sleep," then turned back toward the blank TV. I went back behind the desk, my hands shaking. Around 2 a.m., I noticed he wasn't sitting on the couch anymore. I looked around the lobby and saw him standing at the end of the hallway near the bathrooms, half hidden in the dark. He just stood there, staring. I called my manager and told her what was happening. She sounded half asleep and just said, "Keep an eye on him. Call the police if he does anything." But to me, the way he was acting already was something. I checked the security cameras. He was on the first floor hallway feed, walking slowly down the corridor, stopping at the end, then turning back. Later, he stood in the stairwell for almost 10 minutes. No movement, just standing there. Every time I looked up from the computer, he was in a different spot, by the elevators, near the vending machines, sometimes just standing in the corner of the lobby where the light didn't reach. By 3:30, I couldn't take it anymore. I called the non-emergency police line and told them there was a man in the hotel who I didn't think was a guest. They said they'd send someone. While I was waiting, he moved again, this time closer to the desk, maybe 15 feet away, just staring at me. Unblinking, silent. I pretended to type on the computer, but my hands were shaking so bad the keyboard was rattling. At around 3:50, the buzzer went off. My heart jumped. I thought maybe it was the cops, but it was just another guest returning late. As I let them in, I saw the man turn his head to watch them walk past. His eyes followed the guest the whole way across the lobby, like he was studying them. That's when I called 911. I told the operator there was a man walking around the hotel, standing outside guest doors, and that I didn't think he belonged here. Minutes later, I saw him on the camera feed, standing outside a guest's room door on the first floor, just standing there. When the police finally arrived around 4:10, I pointed them right to him. He was sitting in the lounge again, calm as ever. They spoke to him, checked his ID, and after a few minutes, walked him out. One of the officers came back and told me the guy wasn't a guest. The credit card he used was stolen. He had no bags, no ID, and had never checked in anywhere. He was just pretending so he could get into the building. They charged him with trespassing and possession of stolen property. After they left, I sat there for the rest of my shift, staring at the cameras. Every creak, every flicker of light made me flinch. The scariest part wasn't that he was there, it's realizing how long he'd been inside, watching me, wandering the halls, standing outside guests' doors, and I'll never know what he was planning to do. Meredith had been working at the gas station for 3 years. She was used to the late-night drunks, the occasional thief, and the weird customers who lingered a little too long. But nothing ever really scared her until Paul started showing up. He was in his mid-30s, quiet, polite, always buying the same thing, a pack of cigarettes and a coffee. At first, she thought he was harmless. He'd chat a little, ask about her shift, sometimes leave tips, but after a few weeks he began showing up every single night, always at 1:13 a.m., like clockwork. One night, he told her he lived nearby and didn't sleep much. He said he liked talking to her, said she made him feel safe. She just smiled politely and went back to work. The next night, he was waiting outside before her shift even started. When she got out of her car, he waved. He said he wanted to walk her in because it was dangerous at night. Meredith told him she was fine, but he followed her to the door anyway. From that point on, he lingered longer every night. Sometimes he'd stay in the parking lot after she clocked in, just sitting in his car with the headlights off, watching the windows. A week later, her manager told her that a man had called earlier in the day asking what time Meredith worked. That's when she started getting nervous. That night, he didn't come in. She felt relieved, until she noticed a note slipped under the counter. It said, "You didn't look happy tonight. I can fix that." Her hands were shaking when she showed it to her co-worker. The next night, she told the manager she didn't want to work alone anymore. He brushed it off, said she was overreacting, but the following night, just after 2 a.m., she was restocking shelves when she heard something outside. The security cameras showed Paul's car, parked by the dumpsters. The lights were off, but the driver's door was slightly open. She called the police right away. When they arrived, the car was empty, but they found a folded blanket, rope, and duct tape in the trunk. Paul was arrested the next morning outside his apartment. He had written her name on the inside of his notebook, over and over. She quit the job a week later and never worked nights again. Max and Ben were closing the gas station late one night when a white car pulled in. The driver didn't get out, just sat there with the headlights off. Max thought nothing of it at first. People sometimes parked there to make calls or sleep for a bit, but after 20 minutes the car was still there. Then the driver's side door opened. A man stepped out, tall, wearing dark clothes. He didn't go to the store, just stood by his car, facing the building. Ben whispered, "Dude, he's just standing there." The man slowly walked to the window, staring inside without saying a word. His face was pale, eyes sunken. Max called out, "We're closed, sir." The man didn't react. He turned his head slightly, then walked around the side of the building, out of view. The cameras showed him pacing near the back door. Max locked it and called 911. The operator told them to stay inside and keep the doors secured. They watched as the man disappeared behind the dumpsters. A few minutes later, there was a loud bang from the side door, like someone trying to kick it in. Max grabbed a wrench. Ben stood frozen. The banging stopped, then silence. 10 minutes passed before police arrived. They found no one there, but the door frame was cracked, and fresh footprints led toward the woods behind the station. Later, the officers told them there had been reports of a man matching that description, breaking into rural gas stations across the county, waiting for employees to finish cleaning before attacking them. Max and Ben both quit the next day. Neither of them ever worked night shifts again. Daniel worked at a roadside motel off the highway, one of those places where you rent a room for $30 a night and hope the sheets are clean. He'd been there 6 months. The job was quiet, mostly dealing with truckers, couples, and the occasional strange guest. But one night, around 3 a.m., he heard the bell at the front desk ring. When he came out, no one was there. He figured it was a prank until it rang again. He stepped behind the counter, and that's when he noticed something odd. The bell was slightly tilted, and underneath it, pressed against the counter, was a small, pale hand. He froze. Then, slowly, the hand pulled back under the desk. Daniel stepped around, heart pounding. "Hello," he called out. No response. He crouched down to look, and what he saw made his stomach turn. There was a man lying flat on the floor, half under the counter, staring up at him. His eyes were wide, lips trembling. Daniel jumped back and ran for the phone, but the man crawled out before he could dial. He stood up shaking and said in a quiet voice, "Don't call them." Daniel asked what was going on, but the man just kept repeating, "Don't call them. They'll find me." He looked terrified. After a few seconds, he bolted for the door and ran out into the dark. Daniel called the police anyway. When they arrived, they searched the area but found nothing. Later that morning, they got a report of a car abandoned on the highway a mile away, with the driver's door open and blood on the seat. The name on the registration matched the man who'd been at the desk. Daniel quit the job 2 days later. He said he still dreams about that pale hand ringing the bell in the middle of the night.